Would you survive if a monster started living inside your body? It thinks, it talks, it kills, and now it's a part of you. Parasyte. The Maxim is an anime where humans suddenly stop being the top of the food chain. Creatures fall from the sky. They don't scream. They don't warn anyone. They simply take over human bodies. Shinichi Izumi was supposed to die on the very first night, but the parasite makes a mistake. It doesn't reach his brain. And now, a human and a predator are forced to share one body, learning how to survive together. If you enjoy dark stories with no right choices, hit the like button. And if you want part 2 and more full anime recaps, subscribe right now. Because from this point on, the fear grows stronger, the choices disappear, and every mistake costs a life. In this video, the first 12 episodes of Parasyte. Let's begin. The story begins with strange creatures falling to Earth. They penetrate people, then make their way to the brain and eat it, taking control of the human body. After that, these creatures look for something to snack on, and unfortunately for humans, their favorite food is human flesh. One of these creatures sneaks into the bedroom of a teenager named Shinichi Izumi. The parasite tries to enter his body through the ear, but luckily the guy is sleeping with headphones on. Then the creature tries to crawl in through his nose, but this makes Shinichi sneeze and wake up. The guy sees the parasite and, in panic, tries to kill it, but the creature still manages to get into his body through his arm. It immediately tries to reach his brain, but Shinichi manages to tie off his arm with the headphone cord, cutting off its path. His parents come in because of the noise and ask if everything is okay. The guy answers that there's a snake in his room that crawled into his arm. Hearing this nonsense, Shinichi's dad asks if the kid hasn't been messing around with illegal substances by any chance. So the guy shows him his arm, but the hole from the parasite has miraculously disappeared. The next morning, the guy is squeezed like a lemon. He thinks it was all a dream, since his arm is in place and completely fine. Shinichi only feels a slight numbness, but he chalks it up to the effects of the tourniquet. So after breakfast, he heads to school. But alas, it wasn't a dream. Gradually, his arm starts living its own life, and the consequences don't take long. The first thing that falls under the guy's arm are the boobs of Satomi Murano, Shinichi's school crush. After groping the girl, the guy starts apologizing, but immediately gets slapped. Because of the sleepless night, the guy sits half asleep in class, but not his arm, which once again does whatever it wants, this time with his phone. This annoys the teacher, so, not understanding what's going on, the guy decides to go home. On the way, he notices a little girl running out onto the road in front of a car. Shinichi rushes to help her, shielding her with his body, but instead of screams and blood, just a dull thud. The guy looks in shock at his arm, which slammed into the hood, and sees someone's eye. Finally realizing this isn't a dream, Shinichi returns home. He runs into his room, grabs a knife, and starts asking his arm what it is, threatening to cut it off. The arm begins transforming into some kind of slimy freak, then declares that it will now live in his body. In panic, the guy asks what happened to his right hand, to which the slime answers that it ate it. In hysterics, Shinichi decides to destroy the creature, but it doesn't work. This parasite is damn strong. The creature tells the guy that it can't speak very well yet, so the guy will have to teach it. After that, the slime just falls asleep, leaving the guy in complete shock. Shinichi sits down at the computer and starts searching for information about a snake in the arm, but finds nothing suitable. So the guy decides not to tell anyone about his problem for now, so as not to cause a commotion. The next morning, the teenager wakes up and sees the creature settled in with a pile of books, reading. The guy asks what it is and where it came from. The creature answers that it doesn't know where it crawled out from and only remembers a feeling of demoralization that it failed to eat the guy's brains. Shinichi gets scared, but the parasite calms him down, explaining that now it won't be able to do that because it has grown. The creature suggests starting a peaceful coexistence, but Shinichi is against it. He says he'd rather go to the hospital and cut the parasite off. The creature reminds him that if he does that, he'll be left without an arm. Then the slime falls back into hibernation, leaving the guy at a loss. But there's no time to think. It's time for school. So Shinichi gets ready and goes to have breakfast with his parents. At the table, his father reports that murders have become more frequent in the area. A maniac has appeared who dismembers people. Shinichi assumes that other parasites might be behind this, so instead of school, he heads to the police station to tell them about his arm. The parasite tries to talk him out of it, saying that if he reveals his secret, they'll turn him into a lab rat. Suddenly, the creature senses another parasite somewhere nearby. The arm suggests going to find out who it is. Shinichi doesn't really like the idea, but the creature insists, explaining that meeting another parasite is extremely important. Maybe he'll be able to find out what it is, and where it came from. In the end, Shinichi agrees. When they find the parasite, it turns out to be a dog that eats other dogs. Sensing its fellow, the mutt turns around and, instead of barking, speaks in a human voice, saying that it failed to get a proper body. The arm immediately orders Shinichi to get the hell out of there because the dog is a threat, so the guy starts running, but the damn dog can fly. It turns its ears into wings and launches into pursuit. Realizing they won't get away, the arm has to engage in battle. It stretches out like a hose and turns its limbs into blades, attacking the enemy. The parasite skillfully rips out the winged creature's heart, causing the dog to fall to the ground and shrivel up. After what happened, Shinichi decides after all not to go to the police and heads to school instead. On the way, he gives his new roommate the name Migi. After class, Satomi comes up to Shinichi, planning to talk. The guy, taking advantage of the moment, immediately apologizes for groping her, saying that he doesn't know why it happened. The girl replies that she's ready to forgive him, but only on the condition that he asks her out on a date. After that, she turns around and leaves. Migi, sensing the guy's inner state, immediately turns into a huge doc. The guy is shocked and starts scolding Migi, but at that moment, one of Shinichi's classmates approaches him and challenges him to a fight. They go outside, where the punk immediately starts beating the guy up, justifying his actions by saying that he likes Satomi too. Shinichi endures it, afraid to fight back, but luckily Migi turns out to be impatient, so with one punch he sends the attacker into a knockout. Coming to his senses, the Don Juan cowardly runs away and Shinichi goes to the bathroom. But Migi, having sensed the smell of blood, is eager for a fight. He needs to vent on someone, so the arm starts fighting with the guy's penis. Luckily, Shinichi separates the opponents before something irreversible happens. After class, a female classmate, Yuko, tells the guy that murders of people have increased and that there are too many victims for just one killer. When he gets home, Shinichi discusses the situation with Migi. The guy believes that he needs to turn himself into the police to prevent people's deaths. Migi objects, saying that parasites aren't doing anything bad. They're just feeding, just like humans who kill animals for food. But the guy insists on his point, so Migi starts acting aggressive. He says that if because of the guy's actions he ends up in danger, Shinichi won't like it. The parasite states that although it's not capable of killing the guy, it could easily deprive him of his hearing, sight, or even cut off his tongue, so it's not worth relaxing. Hearing this, Shinichi, completely demoralized, buries himself in a pillow, but then still decides to go for a walk to calm his thoughts. Sitting outside, the guy processes everything he's heard, but Migi interrupts him, saying that it senses the presence of another parasite moving toward them. Despite his fear, the guy decides to meet this creature and learn as much information as possible. He goes to a secluded place where the parasite catches up to him. It turns out to be a middle-aged man who immediately realizes that Shinichi is still human. He offers Migi to move into his body, explaining that the human brain poses a threat to his existence. Then the man cuts off his own arm and offers his fellow to take its place. Migi begins to hesitate, seriously considering the man's proposal. Seeing this, Shinichi starts to feel fear, realizing the danger of the situation. The man, noticing Migi's hesitation, decides to deal with the guy himself so the parasite won't have a choice. But Migi intervenes and kills his fellow, thereby saving his host's life. The next day, Shinichi goes on a date with Satomi. They have a nice time together, enjoying each other's company. Despite the warm relationship, the guy doesn't dare tell her about his right hand. Their idol is disrupted by a group of hooligans who are mocking a kitten. Shinichi stands up for the animal. He frees the kitten and reprimands the guys. But the jerks don't understand what they did wrong since it's just animals. Shinichi explains that the kitten is alive too and has feelings. Then he glares threateningly at the guys, making it clear that they'd better leave peacefully, and afterward, as if nothing happened, continues the walk with Satomi. The next day, on the way to school, Migi again reports that he senses another parasite nearby. The closer Shinichi gets to the school, the shorter the distance becomes, and it becomes clear that the creature is definitely somewhere inside. At the assembly where all the students are gathered, it is announced that a new teacher, Reiko Tamura, has been transferred to the school. The moment Shinichi sees her, Migi whispers that she is the parasite. He immediately warns the guy not to look her in the eyes so the creature won't identify them, but curiosity gets the better of him. As a result, their eyes meet, and the woman instantly realizes that the one in front of her is a parasite host. After being introduced to the new teacher, the students are thrilled about how cool she is, but not Shinichi. The guy is in a daze and doesn't know what to do now. Migi says they got lucky, because this time they encountered a very intelligent individual who doesn't kill people, but instead blends into society and leads a normal social life. Therefore, he advises Shinichi to do nothing and switch to observation mode. The guy does exactly that. However, the teacher clearly has no intention of staying on the sidelines. Right after class, she summons Shinichi to the teacher's room, where she says that she knows about his parasite. Then she suggests talking after classes in some crowded place. So after school, the guy heads to the cafeteria. Reiko comes there too, though not alone. There's another parasite with her. It's some guy with a stupid look like a chicken. Just by looking at him, it's obvious he's not exactly bright. They sit down with Shinichi, and the first thing the teacher says is that she's fucking this guy. The guy is stunned, just like the waitress passing by, but the teacher doesn't give a shit. She adds that after another round of banging, she got pregnant, and now a real human child is growing in her belly. The guy asks why they kill people, to which Reiko calmly replies that it's their nature. She adds that the guy can ask his right hand the same question, but Migi calmly answers that he himself has no fucking idea why that is, because he gets all his nutrients directly from Shinichi's blood and doesn't need to eat people. This conversation turns out to be too complicated for the guy, which makes his stupid face twist while his brain smokes from overload. So the parasite decides to leave, noting to himself that Shinichi is too dangerous and must be killed. Reiko makes it clear to Shinichi that she's done too much to blend into human society, so if the guy starts interfering, she'll arrange a massacre at the school. Then the woman puts a spoon in her mouth, making it clear she's not joking. In the end, they come to an agreement, but the calm doesn't last long, because the very next day, Reiko's grunt storms into the school. He walks down the corridor, smashing everyone in his path. His goal is obvious, to kill Shinichi. A stunned Reiko is amazed at her guy's stupidity, so she decides not to interfere. The teachers, seeing the massacre, announce an evacuation. The students head for the exit. Shinichi realizes that staying in the crowd is a bad idea. He goes up to the second floor, where there are no people, and after barricading himself in from both sides, prepares to meet the enemy. Migi cuts off a chair leg and hands it to the guy, saying that the opponent is dangerous and they'll have to fight together. According to the plan, Migi will handle defense and Shinichi must deliver the killing blow. While the partners are discussing tactics, the guy, ignoring all the barricades, crashes in through the window and without losing a second, attacks. But Migi holds his ground. He focuses on defense, deflecting the enemy's deadly blows. And Shinichi, overcoming his fear, slowly begins to close the distance. When he gets close enough, the guy drives the chair leg into the enemy's body, causing the creature to throw him aside. Blood gushes from its wound, and in order not to lose it all and die, the parasite pierces itself straight through with a tube, cutting off the blood flow. The man is weakened and can no longer return to his human form. His face literally turns into slime. Barely able to move, the parasite heads toward Reiko's signal, planning to merge with her and share one body between the two of them, but the teacher is against it. The moment the man steps over the threshold of the laboratory, a powerful explosion goes off, destroying the parasite and all the evidence. After what happened, life gradually began to return to normal. Shinichi slowly comes out of shock, trying to come to terms with the thought that he had to stab a human body. Reiko hasn't changed either and behaves as if nothing happened, but at one point the administration finds out about about her pregnancy. The management tries to figure out who the father is, so in order not to answer uncomfortable questions, Reiko decides to quit. Before leaving, she meets with Shinichi. The woman informs him that she's leaving the school and that afterwards she will change her name, so they won't meet again. The guy doesn't miss the chance to ask why she still kills people since Miggy gets along perfectly fine without human flesh, which means she could too. Reiko replies that maybe he's right, but when she consumed her host's head, a voice sounded in her consciousness, ordering her to devour all of humanity. Then the guy asks what she plans to do after giving birth to the child, to which the woman replies that she will conduct experiments on it, and if the child turns out to be useless, she'll simply eat it. Hearing this, the guy starts to get angry. Reiko, seeing his aggression, says that the kid has already pissed her off with his questions. She's about to kill the guy, but at the last moment she senses something inside him and stops. The woman says that Shinichi, although barely perceptible, is no longer human, and that this has interested her, so for now, he can live. After that, Reiko goes home. Her host's mother comes there, worried about her daughter quitting the school. The woman immediately realizes that the one in front of her is not her real daughter, so she tries to call the police, but Reiko kills her. The next morning, Shinichi wakes up and sees that Miggy has detached from his body and is calmly walking around the room. At first, the guy gets scared, thinking the parasite is about to take over his brain, but Miggy explains that this is impossible because he doesn't know how to control the body. The parasite also adds that his brethren most likely can change their host's body if it has changed. After that, Shinichi goes downstairs and has breakfast with his parents. They report that they're soon planning a trip together. The guy objects, realizing that doing so right now is unsafe. His mother notices that her son is acting suspiciously, but Shinichi doesn't intend to listen to this, so he gets up and leaves. The woman assumes that he's hiding something, to which the father reacts calmly, explaining that it's normal for teenagers to have secrets. He adds that perhaps her excessive protectiveness is connected to a sense of guilt over a childhood incident, when because of Shinichi, the mother was badly injured and a large scar remained on her arm, which constantly reminds the guy of that incident. After his walk, Shinichi, having calmed down, sits in his room. Miggy notes that maybe the guy is being overly protective of his parents because parasites are most likely found in crowded places, and outside the city they don't exist, so nothing threatens his parents. Hearing this, Shinichi reconsiders his decisions. He informs his parents that he's changed his mind and gives his consent to the trip. The mother doesn't understand why her son changed his stance so abruptly. This change increases her anxiety, and she admits that sometimes it seems to her that he's no longer her son. Seeing his mother's condition, Shinichi wants to tell her about Miggy, but realizes that this could put the family in danger. So the guy comes up with an excuse, saying that he was just scared to stay home alone. The next day, the parents leave on their trip. As soon as they're gone, the guy immediately relaxes his ass and on the very first day, oversleeps school. Shinichi blames the parasite for not waking him up, to which Miggy explains that the guy's body now needs more sleep because it's spending more energy. He adds that Reiko was most likely right when she said that Shinichi had partly stopped being human. Hearing this, the guy remembers his mother's words that lately he's been acting not like her son. These thoughts are interrupted by a gang of hooligans who are methodically beating up Shinichi's classmate. The guy decides to stand up for his friend, for which he immediately gets punched in the jaw, but he doesn't give up trying to help. Then a thug named Mitsuo approaches him and starts beating him up for real. He's stopped by a friend named Kana, who asks why Shinichi, being so weak, is going against a crowd. But noticing something strange in his eyes, Kana gets very scared and runs away. After class, Shinichi and Satomi walk home. They're met by the morning acquaintance who, seeing the couple, says that in the morning, Shinichi behaved strangely when he went alone against a crowd of hooligans. But the guy doesn't want to discuss it, and taking Satomi with him, leaves, avoiding the conversation. This scene catches Mitsuo's attention. Unrequitedly in love with Kana. Jealous of her toward Shinichi, he and his buddies ambush the couple and take Satomi hostage. Shinichi stands up for his girlfriend, though it does no good. Mitsuo starts beating the guy up. Miggy has no intention of tolerating the abuse and prepares to intervene, but Shinichi tries to restrain him, understanding the consequences. At that moment, Kana appears. She brought a crowd of brave guys to help. Seeing what's happening, the students rush at Mitsuo and his buddies. In the end, the beaten Shinichi ends up at home together with Satomi. The girl takes care of him and praises him for standing up for her. After Shinichi spends time with Satomi, he meets Kana. She apologizes for the morning incident and offers a truce. Shinichi agrees and shakes her hand. At that moment, Kana senses something. Noticing this, the guy jerks his hand away and hurriedly goes home. There, Miggy warns Shinichi to be careful around that girl because she has the ability to sense parasite waves and might suspect something. At the same time, the story cuts to a married couple driving somewhere outside the city. At one moment, the driver gets distracted and they get into an accident. When the woman comes to her senses, it turns out that she's a parasite. The creature realizes that its body is dying and that it needs to move into another host. So it takes over the man's body and heads toward the city. But along the way, the host begins rejecting the parasite. It understands that it needs a woman's body, not a man's. So in a hurry, it starts looking for a victim. Unfortunately, the first one it finds is Shinichi's mother. The creature beheads her right in front of the guy's father, who miraculously survives. Covered in blood, the man finds the nearest phone and calls Shinichi, telling him that some monster killed his mother. The guy can't believe what he hears. Shock, fear, and despair overwhelm him completely. All night he sits in the kitchen, tormented by doubts, and only falls asleep toward morning. Waking up from nightmares, he again remembers his father's words. His psyche can't handle it. Shinichi keeps repeating that his mother is alive, trying to convince himself that none of this is real. His state is on the verge of madness. In despair, he starts blaming Miggy, saying that if he had told his parents about his hand, this wouldn't have happened. But suddenly Miggy interrupts him, saying that another creature is approaching the house. The guy jumps up and grabs a knife, preparing to defend himself. At that moment, the door quietly opens with a key. Shinichi, gripping the knife, steps into the hallway, blade in one hand, Migi in the other, ready to fight. Someone calmly enters the house. The guy holds his breath and takes a step forward. His mother appears in the doorway. At first glance, it's clear this is no longer her. There's nothing human left in her. But Shinichi's mind refuses to believe it. Shock and panic mix with hope. Completely out of his mind, the guy seems to fall into his own delirium. He mutters incoherent words, trying to convince himself that everything is fine. Migi tries to bring him back to reality, saying that this is not his mother. Standing in front of him is a parasite, and it's intent on killing. But Shinichi doesn't listen. He suddenly points the knife at his own hand, shouting for it to shut up. He threatens to cut Migi off if it doesn't stop. At that moment, the creature strikes. The blade pierces the guy's chest, stabbing straight through his heart. Shinichi's body falls lifelessly to the ground. The creature, confident that Migi didn't survive, turns around and goes in search of the father who escaped, intending to kill the witness. Seeing that the guy is dying, Migi decides to act. He separates from the guy and penetrates inside the body, replacing the damaged heart. He also makes sure the guy doesn't die of hunger or thirst, regularly sustaining him. After some time, Shinichi comes to his senses and notices that his vision has improved. The guy goes to the bathroom, takes off his blood-soaked t-shirt, and seeing a huge scar, realizes that Migi saved his life. Shinichi remembers everything that happened and finally comes to terms with the fact that his mother is dead. A feeling of loss overwhelms him. At that moment, the phone rings. The guy is told that his father is in the hospital, so Shinichi heads there. Leaving the house, he meets Satomi, who came to check on him. But the guy isn't in the mood for romance right now. He tells her about his father's condition, keeping quiet about his mother, and then leaves. On the way to the hospital, Shinichi realizes that the creature that killed his mother didn't come to the house by chance. It was looking for his father, so the guy plans to stay near him for a while to protect him. By evening, with the help of a local schoolgirl named Maki, Shinichi makes it to the hospital. By that time, the local police have already convinced his father that no monsters exist and that he imagined everything, especially since his wife was seen alive. As a result, when the guy tries to find out what happened, his father says it was just an accident. Shinichi doesn't believe it, but his father cuts him off, saying that now isn't the time for conversations. So, the guy leaves his father's things and heads to a local hotel. Left alone, Migi tells Shinichi that after having to separate from his hand for a long time to replace the guy's heart, his body underwent changes. He became weaker and now has to go into hibernation for 4 hours every day, during which he won't be able to wake up under any circumstances. Shinichi asks why Migi didn't say this earlier. The parasite replies that after the mother's death, the guy treated him with hostility, so he didn't want to reveal his weakness. But Shinichi calms him down, saying that the hostility is already in the past, since Migi saved his life. The next morning, well-rested, Shinichi goes back to the hospital and stays on watch near the entrance. Maki approaches him, sits down next to him, and tries to start a conversation. But at that moment, Migi reports that he senses another parasite in the direction of the beach. Shinichi asks the girl how to get there. Maki explains that he needs to go straight down the street. The guy, not listening to the end, takes off running and rushes toward the creature. The girl tries to warn him, saying that if he goes that way, he'll run into a wall. But Shinichi is already far away. Reaching the spot, he runs into a tall 3-meter barrier and doesn't know what to do next. Catching up to him, the girl says that the entrance is on the other side, but the guy has no time. With tremendous force, he takes off and effortlessly jumps onto the wall. Then the guy rushes toward the unknown parasite, but meets someone other than the one he was looking for. It turns out it's some fat guy named Mamoru. Although he isn't his mother's killer, Shinichi decides to attack the parasite, but Migi stops him, explaining that this guy's brain is human too. It turns out Mamoru's parasite, just like Migi, only took over part of the body. Seeing a fellow parasite, the fat guy's parasite immediately reveals itself, happy that it's not the only one who screwed up like this. Mamoru tells him that he was a complete loser, so he decided to kill himself by jumping off a cliff. But a parasite attacked him, causing the guy to fall into the water and start drowning. To keep the host from dying, instead of the brain, the parasite had to take over part of the chest and throat. That's how they ended up in this situation. Talking with Mamoru, Shinichi realizes that the fat guy is actually a normal dude, and his parasite is too, so he decides to trust Mamoru and tells him his story. Touched by it, the fat guy promises that if he senses any parasite nearby, he'll immediately call Shinichi and let him know. In the evening, Migi shows Shinichi that he's learned how to split into several parts. However, with each split, the intelligence of his fragments decreases, which makes them harder to reunite. Migi adds that when he saved Shinichi, 30% of his body separated and scattered throughout the entire organism. These particles are very small, and he can't connect with them. Shinichi asks whether they could have gotten into his brain, since he's noticed that he's become more emotionally stable. He recalls meeting his father, when despite the terrible pain, he didn't shed a single tear. While Mamoru, after hearing his story, cried like a child. Migi doubts it, saying that those particles are too small, so they're unlikely to influence him. The next day, Mamoru tells Shinichi that his mother's killer has appeared and is heading in his direction. Shinichi tells the fat guy not to be stupid and to get as far away from her as possible, because if the creature finds out that his brain isn't taken over, she'll turn him into minced meat. As a result, the fat guy decides to run to the cliff, luring the parasite there. At the same time, Shinichi rushes toward Mamoru at tremendous speed. On the way, Migi reports that it's time for his sleep. To help Shinichi at least somehow, the parasite transforms the arm into huge blades. Mamoru reaches the cliff, but the creature catches up to him there. Without wasting words, she attacks the fat guy. Mamoru's parasite tries to resist, but because of its bad position, it doesn't work out well. In the end, the creature pierces Mamoru's heart. The guy falls off the cliff and bleeds out in the water. At that moment, Shinichi arrives. The creature is surprised that Shinichi is still alive, but doesn't dwell on it and attacks immediately. But this time, everything is different. The guy moves very fast and easily dodges all the enemy's attacks, then with a quick dash wounds the opponent. The creature panics, not knowing what to do, but Shinichi doesn't stop. The guy swings, ready to deliver the final blow, but upon seeing the scar reminding him of his mother, freezes for a second. The creature takes advantage of the moment and wounds Shinichi. Then she regenerates and rises to finish the guy off. But at that moment, Mamoru attacks from behind. He survived thanks to the fact that his parasite moved his heart to another place. In the end, the creature is dead, so our hero returns home. Meanwhile, Kana's thoughts are more and more occupied by Shinichi. Noticing this, Matsuo decides to ambush the guy after school. After waiting for him, he leads Shinichi to a secluded place and warns him to stay away from his friend. But Shinichi has no idea what he's even talking about. Then Matsuo attacks, hoping for a quick outcome. But no such luck. Shinichi is no longer the same. He easily dodges, avoiding all the blows. The bully just won't stop raging, so Shinichi grabs him by the leg and effortlessly throws him aside, then leaves together with Satomi, who arrives in time. On the way, the girl notices that Shinichi has changed after returning from the hospital and asks what happened during his trip. The guy assures her that it's not important, since everything is fine now. He changes the subject, and the couple continues walking, not noticing Kana, who with her abilities now senses the guy even more strongly. Unlike his father, Shinichi recovers very quickly after his mother's death. He notices this and assumes it's because Migi's cells have spread throughout his body. The guy also says that his senses have greatly sharpened, not only his vision, but also his hearing and sense of balance. During one of his walks with Satomi, he hears that somewhere in the distance a car hits a small puppy, so he immediately rushes to help. When he arrives, he sees that the dog has suffered fatal injuries. Shinichi picks it up in his arms and sits down on the playground. The girl, touched by his actions, praises him for his kindness, but the guy interrupts her, saying that the dog's heart has stopped. Then he takes the corpse and just tosses it into the trash. Satomi is horrified. She asks why he did that, but Shinichi, like a tank, doesn't get at all what's wrong. He says it's just a piece of dead flesh. Hearing this, Satomi completely freaks out and runs away from him as fast as she can. Left alone, Shinichi asks Migi why she reacted like that, but the parasite himself has no clue. Nevertheless, the guy decides to take the dog out and bury it. The next day, a new student named Hideo Shimada is transferred to the school. It turns out he's a parasite who, sensing Shinichi, immediately comes to meet him, saying that he's friendly. Our hero, of course, doesn't trust the parasite so easily, so later the guys find a secluded place and decide to drop all the masks and talk. Hideo immediately admits that he's here on Reiko's orders, who asked him to keep an eye on Shinichi. He assures him that after taking over his host's body, he hasn't killed anyone and tries to feed on ordinary human food. However, that's complete bullshit. In his free time, the parasite regularly feeds on people. Without letting the guy finish, Migi interrupts, saying that they urgently need to leave. Then, moving a little away, he explains to Shinichi that it's time for him to sleep and that this guy must not find out about it. Later, Satomi, remembering the incident with the dog, decides to apologize to Shinichi for losing her temper, but the guy, lost in thought, can't sleep. He doesn't notice her approaching and ends up greeting her with a not very friendly expression, which really scares her. After classes, Kana waits for Shinichi, believing that an invisible thread of fate connects them. She's sure that the feeling leading her to him is a sign that he's her other half. Sensing someone approaching, the girl calls out to Shinichi, but Hideo comes out from around the corner instead. The guy doesn't understand why Kana called him by a different name and starts to suspect something, so he grabs Kana by the hand and tries to drag her away somewhere. At that moment, Shinichi appears. He stands up for the girl and then walks her home. On the way, Kana tells him that she can feel him from a distance. Hearing this, the guy warns her not to approach people she senses because they are very dangerous. But the girl doesn't listen, and the next day she again confuses Hideo with Shinichi. This time, Mitsuo stands up for her and, after taking the parasite to the restroom, immediately gets gets smacked. Hideo decides not to finish the guy off. Leaving the restroom, the guy notices Yuka, who has been secretly watching him. The girl fell in love with him at first sight after he was transferred to the school, so much so that she even draws his portraits in her free time. Their eyes meet, and Yuka gets embarrassed, looking away. As it turns out, Shinichi's father did not abandon the investigation into his wife's murder. Investigators secretly contacted him and questioned him about everything he knows. The man describes the creature in detail, thanks to which the investigators managed to create a composite sketch of the parasite. After the police leave, the father finally decides to tell Shinichi what really happened to his mother. The guy listens carefully, but still doesn't dare to reveal his secret. All the past events strongly distance Satomi from Shinichi, so the guy plans to make up with her. But no such luck, because Migi again senses a hostile parasite nearby. It turns out Mitsuo didn't learn his lesson and brought his buddies to deal with Hideo. They move to a local back alley where there are no prying eyes. Hideo is already about to deal with the bullies, but at the last moment Shinichi appears, jumping over a huge fence which greatly surprises the parasite. The guy approaches Hideo and tells him to get lost, saying he'll handle things himself here. The punks are stunned, not knowing what to do. Their leader is the first to snap out of it. He walks up to Shinichi, intending to land a 1-2, but the guy catches his hand and then squeezes it with enormous force. The man immediately realizes that the kid must be hitting the gym, so in the end, everything ends peacefully. And the guy, meeting Satomi, who brought him his backpack, heads home. While the couple is chatting sweetly, Hideo approaches them. Shinichi grabs the girl by the hand, shielding her, and demands that the parasite leave. His aggressiveness works, and Hideo walks away, but Satomi, watching the guy's behavior, begins to doubt that he's the real Shinichi, which only angers him even more. The guy snaps and tells her to shut up, as a result of which the girl apologizes and leaves. Meanwhile, Yuka, whose brother, by a strange coincidence, is involved in the parasite investigation, the more closely she watches Hideo, the more strange things she notices about him. At one point, she accidentally sees the guy knock off a piece of his head with a ball, but Hideo instantly regenerates. This really scares the girl, but driven by curiosity, she continues to follow him anyway, and at some point notices how Hideo changes his appearance. Yuka remembers her brother's drawings from the investigation and his stories about bloodthirsty aliens capable of changing their form. However, the girl doesn't believe that the guy she fell for is a cold-blooded killer, so she decides to ask him personally. The next day, just in case arming herself with a bottle of acid, Yuka invites the guy to talk in an empty classroom. When Hideo arrives, the girl says that she knows about the parasites and saw his transformation. She adds that she doesn't believe he's a cold-blooded killer, but nevertheless, if it's true, she doesn't want him to hurt anyone else and wants the parasite to go back to his homeland. Hearing these words, Hideo realizes he's been exposed, so he transforms his head, intending to attack. Sensing his aggression, Shinichi immediately heads toward him, intending to stop him. But it's too late. The creature attacks the girl, but in retaliation, she smashes him with a bottle of acid. The bottle shatters, dousing the parasite's head, causing him to be unable to transform back into a human. Taking advantage of the moment, Yuka climbs out through the window, trying to escape, but the creature attacks again, so the girl falls down, drawing everyone's attention. Some students notice movement in the window and together with the teacher head there, but as soon as they encounter the creature, they are instantly turned into a bloody mess. Meanwhile, Migi says that fighting here is a bad idea and that they also need to evacuate, so Shinichi leaves the school along with the others. Once outside, the guy learns that Satomi's class for some reason still hasn't come out, so the kid decides to check what's going on. He returns to the school and runs towards Satomi's classroom. Arriving there, Shinichi sees the bloody carnage the creature left behind. The sight horrifies him. The guy screams, drops to his knees, clutching his chest, but then quickly pulls himself together. Calming down, he moves on, straight through the bloody mess. At one point, he notices the bloodied corpse of a girl, but fortunately, it's not Satomi. Finally, Shinichi finds her together with two classmates. The girl throws herself into his arms, trembling and unable to stand on her feet. Shinichi calms her down and says that they need to get out as fast as possible. The guys, realizing they'll have to go through mountains of corpses, panic and run off, while Shinichi, sensing the enemy's approach, picks Satomi up in his arms and jumps out of the third-floor window. Landing easily, the guy jumps over the fence and, once safe, takes Satomi to the ambulance. Meanwhile, the arriving police try to stop the creature, but yeah, despite a hail of bullets, it butchers everyone who gets in its way, so Shinichi decides to act personally. So that there would be no witnesses and the creature wouldn't notice him, he climbs onto the roof of a distant building, then picks up a stone and, using Migi's strength, hurls it with such force that after flying 300 meters it pierces Hideo clean through, killing him. In the end, the Japanese government covered up the incident, blaming everything on drugs. To avoid spreading panic, they decided not to reveal the truth to the public. At one of the closed meetings, a professor studying parasites states that as a result of research, he found that if a part of a parasite is torn off, it will still remain alive for some time. As an example, he cites their hair, which continues to move even after being separated from the body. Then the authorities decide to use this fact to test people. The information is passed through the media. As a result, a trend spreads across all of Japan, and now when people meet or get introduced, they start pulling each other's hair. However, as it turned out, this didn't really help much. Meanwhile, Kana, having watched plenty of erotic dreams featuring Shinichi, doesn't stop trying to meet him. Learning about what Hideo had done, she remembers the boy's words, who had said that the people she senses are very dangerous. So when Kana encounters the boy, she immediately tries to pull his hair to check if he's a parasite or not. After confirming his humanity, they walk home together. On the way, the boy asks her not to use her sense, and especially not to approach anyone she senses. But Kana just waves it off, saying that even if she makes a mistake and encounters another person, she'll just pull their hair. Hearing this, Shinichi suddenly grabs her and firmly warns her not to even think about doing that because it's deadly dangerous. But Kana, strangely enough, isn't offended by the boy's rudeness. On the contrary, she enjoys his concern. At that moment, Migi speaks to Shinichi and says that they urgently need to talk, so the boy quickly leaves. No sooner has he gone than Satomi appears out of nowhere. She approaches Kana and, pulling her aside, asks what she thinks about Shinichi and if she's noticed that he's changed a lot recently. Kana replies that she doesn't care because she's sure Shinichi is a good person, adding that if Satomi keeps walking around with such a sour face, someone will just take her boyfriend. Secluded, Migi warns Shinichi that Kana's abilities are growing stronger and that this threatens to expose them. At the same time, we see a car from which a strange man in a tank top emerges. He heads toward the local Yakuza. Upon arrival, the muscleman coldly kills the guard at the entrance, then barges straight into the office and attacks everyone inside. The Yakuza, armed to the teeth, try to stop him, but the man ignores their efforts with his alien strength and, in an instant, takes out 20 armed criminals. It turns out the muscle man is a parasite, and an incredibly strong one, because he doesn't even need to transform to demolish an entire crowd. The noise draws people, who see the blood-soaked parasite leaving the building. To avoid attracting more attention, the muscleman starts running. Then, after changing his appearance, he gets back in the car and drives away. After Shinichi's heroic actions, his relationship with Satomi warms noticeably. They go on a date, chatting sweetly and carefree. The girl again tries to find out what happened to the boy during his trip, but Shinichi doesn't want to talk about his mother's death, so he stays cold. At one point, the couple notices a boy arguing with his mother. Watching this scene, Shinichi feels a sharp pain in his chest. Satomi worries, but the boy quickly regains composure. Seeing her concern, Shinichi wants to tell her the truth, but he doesn't dare. After taking the girl home, Shinichi kisses her. Kana sees the kiss, and that makeout clearly displeases her, but the girl isn't going to give up that easily, especially since Shinichi regularly appears in her dreams. So the next day, she sets up a meeting with him. On the way to the girl, Migi tells the boy that he senses 8 parasites. Getting closer, Shinichi notices a large crowd gathered around a car. Parasites are standing on the roof, pushing a candidate's campaign speech for mayor. The boy, to put it mildly, is shocked. Damn, parasites are already marking government positions. At that moment, he meets the gaze of one of them, the man in the tank top. Shinichi panics and looks away. At this moment, Kana arrives. The boy immediately pulls the girl aside and asks why she's here, since the meeting place was supposed to be somewhere else. She replies that she felt his presence, but also detected several other signals there. Realizing the full situation, Shinichi becomes even more worried. So he decides to tell Kana the whole truth about the parasites, since she is able to sense them. But at the last moment, Mitsuo interrupts their conversation. Not wanting anyone to overhear, Shinichi tactfully leaves, leaving the girl with her friend. When he gets home, Migi urgently asks the boy not to reveal the secret about the parasites. Shinichi pretends to agree, but in secret, while Migi is asleep, he arranges another meeting with Kana. At this meeting, the boy tells her everything he knows, but the girl doesn't believe him and asks for proof. The boy says that the parasite in his hand is currently asleep, so he will show it next time. He warns her again to stay away from him to avoid accidentally encountering another parasite. But Kana, wanting to calm the boy and at the same time continue seeing him, decides to lie, saying that she can now distinguish his signal from the others. Shinichi relaxes after this. Later, Kana continues to watch the boy. The girl is upset that her beloved doesn't sense her the way she senses him, so she concentrates and tries to reach him mentally, but unsuccessfully. Migi notices her signal. He tells Shinichi about it, saying that Kana's ability has strengthened so much that now she emits the same signal as the parasites, though only at a short distance, and only if she focuses intensely. Upon hearing this, Shinichi decides to confess to Migi that the previous night while he was asleep, he revealed the secret about the parasites to the girl and asks him to talk to her. At first, Migi hesitates, but eventually agrees. So Shinichi immediately heads to Kana. The girl, wanting to prove that her ability is fate and that she is truly the boy's beloved, not Satomi, leaves her phone at home and goes out searching for her beloved, relying only on her sense. She arrives at an abandoned building and, confident that she has found Shinichi, runs inside. But around the corner, Kana bumps into a parasite, which at that moment is deciding to snack on some poor soul. Terrified, the girl tries to flee, hoping Shinichi will save her. At the last moment, she sees the boy and rejoices, knowing she was right. He is here, but the creature manages to pierce her through. Seeing this, Shinichi flies into a rage. He orders Migi to protect her, and he himself rushes into battle with lightning speed. The parasite doesn't react in time, and the boy delivers a powerful blow, piercing the creature's chest and ripping out its heart. Migi is stunned. Holy crap, what strength. Shinichi runs to the girl and picks her up, but the mortal wound leaves no chance. Kana is bleeding out. She confesses her love to the boy, and then, saying goodbye, dies. Her death hits Shinichi hard. He begins to blame himself, because he was the one who arranged the meeting. He feels the loss, but cannot cry, which frustrates him even more. The boy is consumed by despair to such an extent that after the funeral, when Mitsuo attacks him, he doesn't even resist.